Dr. Hovind, I love your doctoral thesis. I've torn it to pieces with house and gaffle. I can't remember when I last pissed myself laughing. It's a good thing the thesis mopped the piss off the floor.
Welcome to part 53 of this read-through and peer review of Kent Hovind's doctoral dissertation, which was published on wikileaks.org on December the 9th, 2009. If you have not yet seen the first parts in this series, then I recommend that you go and see those first, as in this episode I will be starting off exactly where I finished off in the last. In the last episode, Kent started describing time and heaven. He continues in this episode. Heaven and eternity are not things we can comprehend while locked in flesh. An example of this would be the story where Paul was stoned to death outside the city of Lystra. Paul went to heaven, where he got a foretaste of eternity. He saw heaven. So it wasn't that he took a blow to the head while being stoned to death, was it, Kent? That he saw visions and things like that. No, he saw heaven. Right. God said,
I'm sorry, Paul, you must go back down to earth. I'm not done with you yet.
So Paul went back down as they were dragging his body out of the city to throw it on the garbage heap. He crawled into that body again and arose from the dead. Really, Kent? A bit like Jesus. Are you sure? Are you sure he wasn't just unconscious for a while? Anyway, he said 14 years later, I knew a man in Christ above 14 years ago, whether in the body or whether out of the body, I cannot tell. God knoweth. Such an one caught up to the third heaven. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 2. He said that there he saw things that were not lawful for him to utter. Really, Kent. One thing that we can be sure of, because we sure as hell can't actually be sure of what he saw, was that when he saw them, he'd just taken a blow to the head. So it's hardly going to be reliable now, is it? But anyway, I believe what happened there was that he saw things that he could not describe to his listening audience because they were still bound to their human bodies. Either that, Kent, or he just had a failure of imagination. If you were talking to a blind man and you were going to try to explain to him the different colours of the rainbow, you would be wasting your time. He cannot understand the differences. You cannot explain sounds or music to a person who has been deaf all his life. You just won't get the information into his mind. And you cannot explain simple scientific concepts to creationists either. It's not that they're deaf or they're blind. It's just that in many cases, a bit like you, they're somewhat brainwashed or stupid. But do go on. There are 5 entrances into the human mind. We call those the 5 senses. We think that God is limited to those 5. Well, Kent, God did apparently make man in his own image. You would therefore presume from that God also has 5 senses, if he existed. But do carry on. There may be thousands or millions of things beyond our comprehension. Kent, there are so many things that are beyond your comprehension. This doctoral dissertation proves that. To say that it is 1990 in heaven is to put human limitations on God. I think that is a very foolish thing to do. Yes, Kent, how foolish have you got to be to assign attributes to your invisible friend? But anyway, what time is it in heaven? let's imagine that you are in a helicopter above the Grand Canyon. As you hover up there, we'll imagine that you have the capacity to hover for days and days at a time. If you're going to be imagining things, Kent, why not knock yourself out? Let it go, run a little. Why not imagine that you're sat on a cloud? It's what God does, after all, isn't it? But do go on. You notice through your telescope that some people are launching a raft at the beginning of the canyon. Really, Kent, I think I know where you're going with this, and before you do go there, I'd just like to point out that the Grand Canyon is over 270 miles long. That's equivalent to the distance between London, England, and Paris, France. Tell me, Kent, exactly how high in a helicopter do you have to go above your house in Pensacola, Florida, to be able to see New Orleans? After all, Kent, that's only 200 miles away. But do carry on. About 30 minutes later, another group of people launch a raft. 30 minutes later, a third group of people launch a raft. Every 30 minutes, a new group of people starts their journey through the Grand Canyon on a raft. Okay, Kent, I get the concept. Get on with it. None of the groups can see each other because of the twists and bends of the river as it goes through the canyon. They cannot see the groups in front of them or behind them. As far as they are concerned, they're all alone. Yes, Kent, apart from the hillbillies on the cliff tops taking pot shots at them with a rifle, hoping that they'll be able to catch up with them later on downstream and make the one that looks like Ned Betty squeal like a pig. But anyway, however, you in your helicopter are able to see all of the groups at the same time. You can see the one at the beginning of the race that's left 4 days ago, and you can see the group that is just now leaving. 4 days ago, Kent? They haven't got very far, have they? Carry on. Each one of the groups has a different perspective of the canyon. Not really, Kent. They all have the same perspective, that being from river level. Each one of them sees a different section of the canyon. Really, Kent? I thought they all started in the same place, about half an hour apart. I'm guessing that they're all seeing exactly the same section of the canyon, just 30 minutes behind each other. They are locked into position. Really, Kent? They're floating downstream, and those that are floating downstream in the fast-flowing parts of the canyon, well, they're going to be floating faster than those in the slower-flowing parts. This is going to mean that those travelling behind in the faster-flowing parts are going to be catching up those flowing ahead in the slower-flowing part. But anyway, they cannot decide to jump ahead 50 miles or to jump back 50 miles. Really, Kent? So they can't pull up to the bank, drag the raft out of the water, stick it on the back of a trailer, hitch that trailer up to a truck, and drive either back upstream or drive off downstream. I think they can, but never mind. They have to go with the flow, so to speak. You are in the same position here on Earth as far as time goes. We are locked into 1991 right now. Yes, Kent. Unless, of course, you're Jewish, in which case you're in the year 5752, Iranian, in which you're in the year 1370, you're using the Islamic calendar, and therefore you're in year 1411, or Chinese, in which case you're in the year 4688. But do go on. We will be here for a year, then we will be locked into 1992. Yes, Kent, but given the choice, you'd much rather go back to the Dark Ages, back in the 1400s, wouldn't you, Kent?